I lived in a little village that was about 20 miles away from a fairly large city called Hull. And then there they had a sort of municipal gallery. There was one painting which was just of a very small painting of a bunch of onions hanging up in a greenhouse. And that was really my first question about art. I couldn't figure out why someone painted a bunch of onions. I could understand why they painted sailing ships and these big epic stories about traveling the world, but I couldn't understand why someone should paint something as simple as a bunch of onions. You know, it's a little bit like when you're growing up and you hear quite difficult jazz or something for the first time. Like when you're 18 or so, you listen to something like John Coltrane or something, and you hear it and you think, what's that all about? It means nothing to you. And yet at the same time it raises a level of curiosity and you start to get into it just because you don't understand it. So the little painting was the same. I didn't understand it, so I tried to understand it. I think good paintings actually don't give you an answer. I think paintings should block you off. So I think you should be seduced into them, they should take you into them, but actually they shouldn't give you any answers. I think they should push you back out again. And I think one of the reasons people who are interested in painting, keep going back to paintings is because they pull and push you all the time. They pull you into them, they seduce you in, but then actually they hold you back, they push you back out again. And I think a good painting does that. I think a painting that tells you everything has lost it. It's revealed itself and it's gone. Whilst I think really good paintings have this ability to draw you in, but at the same time at some point to push you back out again. What you want to do every morning when you get up and you go into the studio is you want to believe that actually the painting you're painting on, you've never seen it before in your life, and that it takes you by surprise. So you fool yourself when you go into the studio in the morning into looking at the painting and thinking, my God, is that what it is? As if to say, I haven't seen that before and I've never painted on it before. So you play this kind of game with yourself. I'm always amazed when I get up in the morning, you get out of bed and you flip over the side of the bed, and I'm always amazed that the floor's still there, the walls are still there, you stand in front of the mirror and you still have the same arms and legs and you still have the same face, all of these things, and you kind of think, isn't it incredible that nothing's changed? Because actually everything is changing all the time. If you try to repeat the same sentence immediately after you've said it, it won't come out exactly the same. Even if you use the same words, it'll have a different inflection or it'll feel different. So on one level, everything is changing all the time. And yet on another level, as human beings, we have this quasi-stability whereby we stay the same. And I think paintings do the same thing. They stay the same, but they're changing all the time. And you're looking for that surprise of change that somehow is implicit in the painting. I'm not interested in starting a painting and seeing it all the way through in one go, because it heats the painting up. It speeds the painting up. And I think one of the critical things in painting is actually not to do with, everyone thinks that painting's somehow about space, but I think it's much more about time, and it's actually about wedding time to the painting, so that when you look at a painting, you don't just feel a sense of space and a sense of physical presence, but you actually feel a kind of latent time inside the painting. And I'm interested in trying to slow that time down. So for instance, if I'm working on a painting and it's going very, very well, then I'll stop working on it, even if it's going well, and I put it aside, and I might not come back to it for 3 or 4 months. Then I bring it out again, and then I might sit with it for 3 or 4 days just looking at it, thinking, where does it go now? And if in fact it can't go anywhere, and I can't think what to do with it, then the painting may be finished. But I've never at any point said the painting is finished. It's like it's sort of finished itself in the process. And all I've got to do is be aware to that moment when the American abstract expressionists were working, there was a symposium with a group of them. And someone posed the question, how do you know when a painting is finished? And Franz Klein said, well, actually, the problem isn't to finish a painting, the problem is to start a painting. That's your difficult bit, starting the painting. And I think he's absolutely right. I don't really think about finishing the paintings, they just finish themselves. I have no real interest in figurative painting. Of course, historically, most painting was figurative, and of course there are some wonderful historical paintings that are of course, they're figurative. It goes without saying. But my own interest lies with painting which is more abstract and to do with trying to leave the painting whereby something is suggested, something is hinted at. So when you look at the paintings, it doesn't feel completely alien to you, but at the same time, you can't quite put your finger on what it is. I think there are enough tables and chairs and people in the world already. I don't see the reason why painters have to paint them as well. Not anymore. It seems to me that with all of the other art media that there now are, photography, video, and everything, all of which also can make art and can reproduce things, it seems to me now the question for painting is to how to actually work with painting in such a way that you are making something which is very specific to painting, that none of the other media can do. So you're looking for a sense of something, the making of something, which can't be made in any other way. So that it's authentic to painting and purely to painting. The impetus for the 12 standing paintings is, in simple terms, is the human form, a person standing. You know, it's like when you meet someone for the very first time, and you just speak for 2 or 3 minutes, and then they go, and then you never meet them again, and then somebody says to you, "What's the person like?" You probably can't remember the color of their eyes, or even if they had really blonde hair or it's slightly fair hair, what have you. Yeah? You can't remember really specific things about them. But what you do have is a really strong sense of that person's physical being, of the energies that that person has, and the feel of that person, yeah? The kind of life force in them. You can sort of feel it very, very quickly. Yeah? And I'm interested in how you actually find an analogy to that in painting. How you actually invest a painting with, if you like, with a life force, with a personality. So the 12 standing paintings, which is their vertical format, was very much about how do you, for want of a better word, how do you personify a painting in the way that you personify a person? You know, is it trying to get, is it bigger than the canvas? Is it trying to get out? Is it being squeezed in by the canvas? Is it shrinking into the canvas in the way that some people shrink when they stand in the room? You know, or is it opening out? And so the paintings were about how do you do that with a painting? How do you make a painting have those same attributes? How do you make it look as if it's breathing out, or as if it's breathing in? How do you make it look as if it wants to come out into the world, or if it wants to go back inside itself? All these kind of human qualities. I mean, often things kick me off. I started on this group of 3 paintings because I went to Siena, and there's this fantastic central painted panel by Duccio of the Meister. And, with the Madonna and the Child, and then groups of angels going out to the side. And for me, it's just a phenomenal painting, absolutely phenomenal painting. And so the notion of there being a central figure, the Madonna and Child in that instance, and then groups of angels on the outside, was the impetus for the format for these paintings, of wanting to have a central figure, and then other forms on the outside, 2 other forms on the outside. So it does become, in simple terms, they're a traditional trinity. But I don't like to dwell on that too much because it pulls it back to the pictorial. And I'm not really interested in the pictorial. So if you like, the genesis of the work is there, but actually I don't want to leave it there. And I certainly don't want to be making any kind of overt religious references, but of course they sit in the background somehow. And I try to leave everything in the painting. So every mark I've made or every gesture that I've made, I try to leave it present in the painting so that it's not actually obscured or blotted out with something else. I like that semi-transparency. So it's lots of very thin layers, and when sometimes the paintings do get too heavy or they get too dense, then usually I discard them, I throw them away, and I start the painting all over again. And this can, especially when I'm starting a new group, the first 3 or 4 paintings that I paint in a new group often will be thrown away because I just haven't got the feel right. And so it's important to me that the work has this openness, has this transparency, that it hasn't got so dense that you actually can't see into it. I'm not interested in painting for novelty, so I'm not interested in saying, oh, what can I do with a painting to make it interesting or to make it different to what already exists in painting in the world. I'm trying to just get back to the core of painting. And actually that core is a very small area to do with figuration, to do with abstraction, to do with how to actually make a painting autonomous unto itself so that it can't exist in any other form. I'm trying to slow the viewer down. I'm trying to take the heat out of looking. I mean, everything now is you know, especially in the digital world and everything is so fast moving. You know, things come and go so quickly, and I think painting can function in a different way. So I'm trying to take all of that sense of speed out of the visual world of looking, and actually place the person looking straight in front of the painting. And it's a very interesting area. I mean, if you follow some young people around a museum, they never look at a single thing as on the wall or at a piece of sculpture. They look at every single thing through the viewfinder of the camera. And it's a very nice metaphor for reality, because when the normal person looks through a camera, be it at a painting or at a landscape or anything else, then at that moment they have actually stopped seeing the real thing. They are only seeing what they see in the camera. And I do think we're moving into a world of the surrogate, in a sense, whereby first-hand experience is being replaced by the digital world. Perhaps the desire to have that primary experience of looking at a landscape, of holding a rock in your hand, or of actually just hugging a tree, whatever, it doesn't matter. Perhaps that's going in the same way that the experience of looking at a painting is going. But for me, it's still profoundly important that we hold on to this primary experience of actually experiencing something for what it really is. All paintings, irrespective of when they were painted, still have this possibility for us to come to them anew, to actually see it for the first time. And I think that's what you're trying to do with someone. You're trying to say, but just look at this for the first time. You know, in a way, when I paint these paintings, I try to leave them in a state whereby I've seen it for the first time. It's still a mystery to me, and I still don't understand it. And so if I can bring that mystery to the viewer, and that sense of openness, that they might come to the painting and think, oh, I see this for the first time, then I think that's enough. It seems to me that's the only thing paintings can do now. That's what paintings can do now.